Good evening, freshmen. Okay, today we're going to cover pages bottom of 178. What? Oh yeah, bottom of 178 to the top of 181. All right, so we're going to start with Christ freely embraced his Father's plan of redemption. Christ freely gives us, and the last part is going to be Christ freely gives us the grace to follow him. Before I get started, remember to hit that subscribe button. But also, on like a more serious note, so I finally put in the participation points for watching the videos. Now I know, just to reiterate what I said or what I posted in Google Classroom, I know that some of you probably have watched them, but just didn't hit the turn in button at the end. So make sure to go back through that, and like if all of your videos are missing, or if it shows up as missing, so you get like a 0 out of 45 or whatever, just let me know that you went back through and hit the button, so then I can go back through and give you the credit for it. It's that easy. So please get that to me ASAP. And I think some of you still have to turn in your little reflection. Because it really isn't a lot of work. But that reminds me, some of you, okay, so the reflection was about as to why you think the Catechism stressed or emphasized the distinction between Jesus assuming his nature, or assuming human nature, and absorbing human nature. And some of you used the wrong definition of assumption. I didn't take any points off, but it's not, it's definitely not the right usage of the word definition, or word assume. It's not, we're not talking about like, oh, I just assumed what he was talking about, like assumed in that way. It's different. It means like to take in, or to place oneself in something. So it's that definition of assume that you were supposed to distinguish between the two. So yeah, but I didn't really take any points off because you did what you were supposed to do. I think I could have been a little clearer with that. I just wasn't really thinking that there were. Well, I'm not going to get into it. Okay. So Christ freely embraced his Father's plan of redemption. So the purpose of the incarnation was the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Now, Jesus freely accepted this mission. And we've already covered how the Last Supper was the transformation of the Passover meal into the new covenant. But one thing we didn't cover was that his death is both the paschal sacrifice and the sacrifice of the new covenant. Okay, so it reconciles us with the Father, and therefore that sacrifice of Jesus is redemptive for everybody, because he reconciles us with the Father. And we got a catechism quote. So now we're on to page 179. No man, not even the holiest, was ever able to take on himself the sins of all men and offer himself as a sacrifice for all. The existence in Christ of the divine person of the Son of God, or the divine person of the Son, who at once surpasses and embraces all human persons and constitutes himself as the head of all mankind, makes possible his redemptive sacrifice for all. Right? So that's it. I mean, that's the ultimate sign of God's love for us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. But God sent the Son into the world, not to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. So that's John 3:16 and 17. All right, so the resurrection, as we've said before, that's the heart of it all. Without it, there's no Christianity. It confirms, it accomplishes several things. First of all, it confirms all Jesus said and did. It's the ultimate proof of his divinity. Next, it fulfilled the predictions of the prophets in the Old Testament and Jesus' own predictions. He said, the Son of Man will be handed over, suffer, and die, in 3 days rise. And on the third day rise. And it's the principle and source of our future resurrection. Did I quote that right? Yeah. Principle and source of our future resurrection. We partake, kind of, in a way, Christ's resurrection. Now, the one name of the church, or one way to refer to the church that you're going to cover next year, is called the Sacrament of Salvation. We as the church share in the work of redemption that was accomplished, started through Christ. And so the church is both the sign and the means of communion. And for that reason, the church is called the Sacrament of Salvation. Because the sacrament, it doesn't simply point to something else. It's not like a stop sign telling you to point, or that is referring to something outside of itself. The goal of the stop sign is not contained in the stop sign. It's for you to stop. Or at least come to a rolling stop. I think starting out, you should probably come to a stop. It's just, you have peripheral vision. I don't know. I struggle with that one. Anyway, so the sacraments, they're signs, but they actually contain what it signifies. So it's different than a stop sign. Hopefully that's kind of clear. I may not have explained it as well as I think I did. So the church is the Sacrament of Salvation. Now we've got a pretty lengthy quote from Redemptor Hominis. In the mystery of the redemption, that is to say, in Jesus Christ's saving work, the church not only shares in the gospel of her Master through fidelity to the word and service of truth, but she also shares through a submission filled with hope and love in the power of his redeeming action, expressed and enshrined by him in a sacramental form, especially in the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the center and summit of the whole of sacramental life, through which each Christian receives the saving power of the redemption, beginning with the mystery of baptism, in which we are buried into the death of Christ in order to become sharers in his resurrection. And there it is. So this idea of... I've been thinking about the Eucharist a decent amount recently. And so this line where it says, the Eucharist is the center and summit of the whole of sacramental life. I think that's actually a pretty profound statement that signifies a lot more than it looks at first glance. It's not just saying the Eucharist is amazing and it's the most kind of important. I think you could probably say the most important sacrament. But if you remember what a sacrament is, okay, so the more broad definition of sacrament, not the efficacious sign of grace instituted by Christ and all that stuff, but if you remember the definition that is a visible sign of invisible grace, and you connect that with icons. Okay, so at least in Eastern Christianity, icons are seen as like windows into heaven. It's like we see the invisible through the visible. Okay, well that's actually like the purpose of the liturgy in itself. Like the whole purpose of the liturgy is to transform mankind and all of creation, as we saw in the Easter prep video. It's like to transform it all, or transfigure it all, perhaps. I think that might be more fitting to say it that way. So that we literally like put on Christ, as St. Paul says. And so the Eucharist does that with material creation. Okay, so the bread and the wine become the body and blood of Christ. And that's the goal for every person as well. Like we want to become like Christ, and be in union with Christ. And so that statement's actually, I think it's very profound. Okay, Christ, now we're on to, well, we're going to get soon. We're going to get to page 180. We're at the bottom of 179 right now. Christ freely gives us the grace to follow him. Okay, so Jesus teaches us to all follow his new commandment of love. And that's a very challenging thing. I think I struggle the most probably when I'm driving. And I think I'm decent at it, or I don't have road rage for the most part, but I do swear like a sailor at times. And so it's challenging. It's definitely challenging, and I mean it's even more challenging, I think, if you're. Well, I don't think I know very well that community is essential here. Like if you're trying to do this on your own, you're going to fail miserably. But not only do we need community, we also need grace. We need grace to be able to advance to the perfection which we as Christians are all called, or advance to the holiness that we're all called as well. So now on page 180. So Jesus doesn't simply say, follow this commandment, this new commandment of love. Like he actually offers us, or he also offers us the strength and the grace to do it. He makes it possible for us to live according to his message. Yet it's important to remember that we have free will. Like God doesn't force this on us by any means. It's an invitation to life and abundant life at that. So Jesus shows us the way and gives us all the help we need to make that journey. For example, baptism. Like through it we become adoptive sons and daughters of God. And through it we're conformed to the image of Christ and given the grace to grow in holiness. Now this grace is not only undeserved, it's also unlimited. Okay, so this isn't exactly what the book is saying here, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's like I don't think we have any clue how holy or even how great, like if you just want to refer to it in more of a broad way, how great we can be. I mean, just look at the lives of the saints, and I think you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Like St. Thomas, one of his miracles that is attributed to him is his writings in themselves. Excuse me. The guy wrote so much that it seems impossible. Like he would, if I remember correctly, he would basically write 3 books at the same time. Like he had terrible handwriting. So he would have 3 scribes, 3 people to write down what he was saying. And so he would give a paragraph of one book to somebody, tell them to write it down, then a paragraph to another book, to a different book, tell them to write that down, then a paragraph to a third book, write that down. And you just go like that. I I want to say that I've heard that like all of his writings aren't even translated into English yet. I don't know if that's still the case, but I think I remember hearing that. You may want to check me on that and get back to me. Gotta give you something to do. Anywho. All right, so God's grace is both undeserved and unlimited. Now, we're also given the example of the prodigal son here to describe how it's undeserved and unlimited. So, the prodigal son, it starts out, there are two brothers. One of them asks, or just demands, I guess, his half of the inheritance from his father while his dad is still alive, and goes off and squanders it, in an immoral way. And when he ends up losing like everything and feeding pigs, like that's his job, and he doesn't even have enough food to eat himself. Like he's eyeing the pig food, and I don't know if you know this about pigs, but they'll eat anything. He realizes like, oh, my dad has servants that are fed very well, so I'll just go back and apologize to him, and ask that he hire me as his servant. So as the son was getting closer to, when he was really close to home, and you got to remember he's walking, okay? It's not like, when you notice somebody's coming home, it's usually like a second before they pull in the driveway because they're driving. Or even when they're in the driveway, that's when you see them. It's not going to be the case with this. So he was pretty far off, but his dad sees him. And so he ran out to meet him, he forgave him, and called for a celebration. So we've got this quote from Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 22 through 24. The father said to his servants, "Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and make merry, for this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Now, while that's happening, or when the older brother finds out that, like, he starts hears the noise of a party, like, what's going on here? I have no idea what is there to celebrate. And his dad tells him, "Rejoice, your brother's home." And then the older brother pitches a fit because, well, he's been doing what his father wanted his whole life, and, like, he's not throwing him in any parties. It's like, what's going on there? Then same gospel, same chapter, verses 29 through 30. But his father set him straight. "Behold, these many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a kid," talking about a fatted calf, not an actual child, "that I might make merry with my friends." Oh, that comes off as really inappropriate. Jeez. So I'm just going to replace those words. "Yet you never gave me a fatted calf that I might make merry with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your living with harlots, you killed for him the fatted calf." So the brother there is, he seems somewhat justified in making that complaint. And I think we're a mix of both brothers. Sometimes there are occasions where we probably act like the older brother, and there are some times where we act like the younger brother. And hopefully, there are many times where we act like the father, and act with mercy. So with the older brother, we see, I think, I agree with the book here, it's a typical response to a perceived injustice. And the word perceived there is, that's an important one. Because was it really an instance of injustice toward the older brother? Jesus pointed out that no wrong was committed against him when he's telling the parable. Because thus the father says to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours." It's like he didn't take anything away from him, but he's still pitching a fit. So Jesus is teaching us that God is not only a God of justice, he's also a God of mercy. And you don't want to have one without the other. I don't think especially in society. Like if it's all justice, no mercy, that's going to be pretty harsh. And if it's all mercy, no justice, it's going to be chaos. Because there are going to be many times where people will just do stuff because they know they can get away with it, and be fine. So it's like it's really important to have to maintain a balance between being just and being merciful. And that kind of I don't know if I should get into that. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it. So yeah, there needs to be a balance. Now I'm just going to read the rest of this paragraph, this last paragraph. We must also admit that sometimes we act like... okay, moving on. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Each of us is every bit as undeserving of God's grace and mercy as the younger brother in the parable. God gives us his grace and forgiveness not because we deserve it, but because he loves us in the same way that a father loves his children, even when we sin. So I'm going to close it there, and we will probably wrap up the chapter next week. Or actually later this week. I forgot what day it was. Because today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, I think it's Tuesday. Okay, so on that note, remember to hit that subscribe button. And clean canteen. Have a wonderful night.